27th meeting of the Salem Plan Commission. I'm Anthony Cyphers, I'm the board president. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. We're going to start with roll call. Marita Jones. Danny Lipka.
Present.
Judy Chastain.
Present.
Greg Zink.
Present.
Scott Nail.
Present.
Chuck Williams.
Present.
And Tom Jacobs.
Present.
Also, we have our attorney, Jacob Bissing, and we have Gina from the building department with us tonight. So, the first thing, did everyone get a packet either emailed or from Gina here this evening with the minutes from the February 27th and the March 2nd meetings? All right. Does anyone have any additions or corrections to make to those two sets of minutes?
If not, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written if nobody's got any objections.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion made and seconded. All in favor? Those opposed? All right, we will approve the February 27th and the March 2nd meetings. Next on the agenda is reviewing the permits issued for February 2023. Those are the last page in the packet for tonight.
And once again, if nobody's got any questions, I'll make a motion to acknowledge the permits from 2/1/2023 to 2/28/2023.
I'll second that.
All right, motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries. We've acknowledged the building permits issued for February. All right, board, I'll go ahead and turn it over. Is there any new business this evening? Gina? Any new business?
No, we do have, you all are the
Extends.
Fixins. From last meeting, you all wanted to talk to the people that own the building.
Who purchased the building from?
Yeah, and they are here.
Gotcha. Excellent.
But as far as new, nothing.
Okay, nothing new. Okay.
No.
All right. All right, so just to make sure no one has any new business to bring up? Okay, well then let's move on to old business. I think since the Fixtons are here, we had brought up board last meeting. This is the building on South Main Street, immediately adjacent to the Dinner Bell Restaurant is the building we're talking about here. Gina, could you, just for everyone's benefit, do you have the address?
307 South Main.
307 South Main. Would you guys like to come on up here for a second so we can talk to you? Thank you. Either way is fine, just maybe a little closer so that we can see and hear each other a little better. I don't know that it's required, but just for the record, would you mind stating your names and your address for us so we know who we're talking to?
Julie Fixton.
Scott Dixon, 307 South Main Street, Suite 1 and 2. That's the building address. Do you want our home address as well?
I think that's
107 North Harrison Street. That's our home address.
in Salem.
Yes.
Okay. Well, the reason for us inviting you and asking you to come talk to the board here tonight is, as you know, on the north side of your building, there is some damage that was sustained in a windstorm several years ago. At this point, the exact date escapes me, but there's been that damage there for a little bit of time. So it's my understanding you've purchased or in the process of
We
purchasing this
have,
building?
we're
We're
purchasing
purchasing on
on
contract
contract, yes.
from Jared.
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay. So we had at least, and someone step in if my memory is not correct here, but back when this damage had happened, we'd been in touch with the prior owner about, hey, there's some damage and it needs fixed. Right?
Yes.
I know, at least back then, there was, of course, something happens, you have insurance, but getting insurance company to do things isn't always the easiest or most timely thing,
Yeah.
especially if there's substantial damage. So I know there had been some time given, some back and forth between us and the prior owner about when's the damage going to be fixed, what's the plan, what's the situation here.
Right.
And so really, I guess why we've invited you is now as the new owners, obviously we haven't talked at all about
Yeah.
the building, so we wanted to talk to you sort of about the building and about the damage and just figure out, is there a solution being worked towards, or what's right now sort of where are things with that north side of the building?
Yeah, my understanding, whatever insurance things were going through, nothing was ever repaired on the building, obviously, so whatever happened with that didn't complete. So we basically purchased, or are purchasing as is, because we need somewhere to stay. There's really no options for our business. We have looked at, or we've gotten several quotes, some things back right in the middle or prior to COVID, and then some numbers just recently, which became significantly higher. The building is only getting worse on a regular basis with every storm we go through, so we're kind of in a tricky situation where it's really going to be very expensive for us to do anything significant to keep it functional.
Gotcha. So you, just to make sure I'm on the same page, so you pre-COVID, pre-everything kind of
Yeah, we
going
got,
sideways, you guys had kind of started looking in, COVID happened, not much of anything happened for anyone during COVID as far as that goes. And then since then, you have looked back at your
yeah,
process. is still
so we had
running.
another issue, what was it, like 3 or 4 weeks, or a month ago, when the big storm came through. It made more damage, so which then flooded the entire building. So then, yes, we had to, we stopped, because nothing was happening, because, COVID, no one was doing it. So then, we recently just had another estimate, which went from this to, there's no way. It was a quote that just, was
Completely
astronomical.
different companies, so we kind of went back to the original company out of Louisville and said, hey, can you give us any kind of updated numbers or anything like that? I know that the structural situation is obviously only getting worse over time, and it would have to have a lot of structural and roof work done, completing the roof before anything else that we want to do can be completed. That's kind of where we're stuck. There's other things we want to do, but we can't do anything until the big stuff is actually done.
Gotcha. So I know back, and you were probably, I know, at least know you guys have been around Salem, so you probably remember back when the bricks had fallen and they'd actually fallen on
Yeah,
the adjacent building, caused some damage.
Yeah.
No one got hurt, thankfully. But I think from where the board's at, that's kind of the concern, right? Is there was damage. It hasn't been fixed. It wasn't fixed before you bought it. It was kind of left.
No.
And I think, kind of like you've noted, the concern is what happens when another real big wind comes. Is it going to happen again? And could it be worse? God forbid someone should get hurt. That's really the concern here. It's not necessarily a tarp being up there. It's if there's a loose brick up there that could fall. That does pose a real risk to not just the neighbors, but anyone who could be around when the wind decides to blow that way.
Yeah.
So I think really what we were wanting to do is sort of meet you, one, and two, kind of just see where you were at in the process, see what you've done, maybe what you hadn't had time to do yet, and try to figure out what a sort of working solution could be to get that building fixed.
You want to write me a check?
One of the quotes is just, I could build 5 buildings with a quote we got. I mean, it's over $1 million.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
because the roof, I mean, it's, the previous owner didn't do anything, and then it just got worse. But when we had a quote before we took over, like, oh, that's doable.
The quote in '21, when we were initially moving into the building, was in order for us to make everything functional, it was gonna, finish out a section, the entire roof, all of the structural work and all of that, was going to be with both of the companies working together, structural and roofing, in the area. I think we said it was like 187,000. So at the time, we were thinking, okay, we can, make that doable, get that figured out. In the process of figuring out financing and that whole process, everything kind of, nothing was really working as far as COVID and everything going on. So we were just renting the building at that time frame
Okay.
and waiting for something to work out. So yeah, I don't know what the difference would be from one company to another, because they're talking about a lot more structural things and stuff like that. And I don't know if it's just an issue with the space or the company or whatever, how big of a difference in the pricing it would be. But it's obviously significantly more if we're looking at, an $800,000 repair.
Gotcha. Now, you said you had rented the building prior, so you had occupied the building and rented it, and then now you are purchasing on
Yeah, we
contract. Do you know the date that you purchased on contract? You may not know
It
exactly.
was in January of this year.
January of this year, okay,
The date of the contract is January 4th.
4th, there you go.
thank you. Or does anyone have any additional questions or?
So when you say structural damage, I guess I'm just wondering about, are you talking about enough structural damage, they're talking about demolition and starting over, or what are they?
So the first guys were, they said they could fix where the previous owner had the sign that fell off, they had to fix that. But the roof already had a little damage also from that storm that took down the sign. And then over time, the previous owner fixed it, so over time the weather just got to it, and then it just got, it's all wood, so it's all starting to rot because he never fixed the hole that's in the middle of the roof, in the back part area. So when we had the other people come in, it has to be replaced with steel, because that's the only way it'll stay. If not, it'll just go in. Because the other previous owner took the 3rd floor out, half of it. So there's not even the 2nd floor is missing now. Because they stored, the 1st floor, they stored RVs in it. So they took that out, so it's only halfway through there. So that part is it's all wide open. The only thing holding it would be the back wall where the freight elevator is. That's holding all 4 corners up.
Is it okay?
Yeah, so you get the hole here, and yes, with the windows never being replaced and boarded up, they're starting to push out this way or push in this way. It's a hole. Yeah. So one quote was great. It was like, oh, we can do all this, fix the building because it's it's a historical building. It's over 140 years old. We're going to use the upstairs. So we need to make apartments, or we would live in it. The whole basement is 10,000 square feet. So we were going to do stuff with that. But after COVID, everything decided it was going to go through the roof and all this stuff.
So what is your new plan? I mean, obviously, you're right, I mean,
Well, I don't have
everything's changed.
I don't have $1.5 million to fix it.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Do you guys mind if I speak, just to give?
Yeah.
I didn't see you.
Do you mind?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
Tammy Gibson from the Washington County Economic Growth Partnership. I just want to kind of support them in the way that they've tried finding other avenues for what they're doing. And even looking back, I began my position in April 2021 And seeing in January that year, Julie had texted the previous executive director, kind of looking for help. What are our options here? We want to buy a building, we want to buy a commercial building for our business. Are there grants available? And I'm thinking that kind of fell apart because there really wasn't anybody in the position. In August of last year, Julie contacted me again, and we went back and forth trying to think of how to do, what options there were. There was I'm going to look at this because I kind of want to give you an idea of what's not available. There was a historic renovation grant that was available in 2022. The building has to be at least 50 years old. This is only for facade. And for the front, possibly the only way we could think that maybe you could work it into is if something with the facade met up with the roof, that we could possibly try to get that all taken care of. But the building has to be in a historic designated area in Salem downtown, and the buildings are historical and on the Indiana Historical Register. So they would have to apply to be on the Register of Historical Buildings in order to apply for this grant. That grant expired in October of last year. So, and that included facade, roof, windows, and doors. So the roof wasn't included on that. That was an option, but at the time, you have to apply for, to be on the register and take care of all of that. And then I had also gotten them in touch with Indiana Small Business Council about small business loans. It's kind of tough to get a business loan on $1 million. There's also, when you're dealing with these loans, it's kind of limited to what you can get a loan for. So they had kind of tossed that around. We talked again in February of this year because they really got to the point where they know the issues. I think they have a lot of history in the town, in the square, wanting to be a business on Main Street. And I think that's where we kind of ran into a little bit of concern because they were thinking of just ditching it all, going, taking a loss and going somewhere else and having their business. But they wanted to be on Main Street. They wanted to be in these old historic buildings that had a purpose and had history, and they have a really good business that needs to be on Main Street. So at that point, there are other grants coming up, but the problem with grants is they only include now infrastructure, things like that. There's not a lot of facade grants coming up. There will be one in May of this year, but it has the same parameters. So if you want to start applying to be on a historic building, this grant still isn't for $800,000, $1 million. The match is 20%, which they discussed that if they would get a grant for $800,000, then $160,000. They could possibly invest that in order to get a grant to do the work. But that's not an option right now. The only thing they really can do at this point is to get a loan. But then, you're putting that right back in the building. Their point is too, they want to live in this building. They want to have their residents upstairs. And now they're living in a home plus running the business. And I don't know if everybody here knows what your business is, if you want to share that.
It's a Handy Company picture framing, which was started here in 100 some years ago. The Hands were here for, they started a shoe company and a construction company, and then he went straight into picture frame. So I bought this off of John and Connie. And so that's been around forever, so.
Yeah, so I know it looks, they're buying a building that's already got damage. I'm still concerned as to what happened with all of that, that wasn't taken care of to begin with. But that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But I just want to let you know they have looked at other options, and there's not a whole heck of a lot out there for facade, unless you really want to try for that in May, but that's just spring, you're going for a couple more months. So that could possibly be something we look at.
So,
But I just want to mention that because I know that, they weren't telling me everything and what they've done in order to try to
and
get
what
some
about
help.
the structural side of that? I mean, there's
Nothing has to do
structural.
with structure. That's the problem with a lot of these grants. You're going to put a new roof on it, new facade, but if there's other issues there.
Right.
Yeah, so, yeah, unless we could find something,
I mean, we've looked at other buildings on the square. Of course, there's not a wide choice of.
yes, that's
I
true too.
have been in contact with the lady who owns what used to be Slim's. She's finally gotten back with me, and she's willing to talk, but I've heard terrible things about that building as well, so I'm like, am I just leaving one building to go to another building if the situation, so it's just, and then the other building, there's another building that's being rented out to a TikToker, so I don't see how that's anything, but that's just me. But, yeah, there's not very many choices, it's getting harder and harder, so, I
I
mean,
mean, unless there's something we can do with the Main Street program that can do something, I mean, we
Yeah.
can dig around more. I talked to Okra, which is the Indiana State, you know, they're the ones that fund and give all the grants. So, I mean, unless we can do a little bit more digging, and I have not, I sent Julie a whole bunch of stuff, but I said, take a look, maybe you're seeing something I don't. But even the grants are limited, you know, 100,000, 200,000, not structural, so. I'm glad that you brought them in at least to give their side of things, because I think either way that building's gonna need help, and it's, you know, it would be to lose it, you know, just a hole in the Main Street. Okay, I'm done.
And I think that's exactly why we wanted to invite you here, and wanted to, because, you know, I don't think it's beating a dead horse. I think everyone is kind of on the same page about, one, there is damage, two, the damage is pretty severe, and
Yeah.
three, something needs done, whether it's by you or the person you're buying a contract with. You know, there is a real danger there to the people around if we do get more wind. Especially now with, you know, just being is that because it wasn't repaired, like you said, if there's additional damage that maybe didn't exist when it did fall, you know, I'm not an engineer, I'm not, you know, that being said, I think the risk is there, and we're all at risk, so. All right, anyone else, any other questions or comments?
Scott and Julie, did you buy that as is?
yeah, unfortunately, yeah, that was the only way to get it.
Okay. Mr. Sullivan, is that who you personally from? Okay. I know you've got to have insurance yourself, but I'm still thinking this should be going back on his insurance for as long as it's been going on. Because the damage was done way before they took ownership of this property.
I was gonna say, I don't recall the exact date, but I know this has been a topic of conversation, a topic of trying to figure out who does own this building and what are they doing about this for several years. This is not a new question.
I know when we originally were moving in, I was asking my insurance agent to go back and look up, and he could not find the records from when the incident happened because it had been over 5 years. So I think about this point, it's probably at least 7.5 years. So it didn't show up on their previous records. And they would have been able to see exactly what was paid out on it and all of that. I don't know if you can go directly through LexisNexis. They may go back a little further, but they weren't able to find that information for me.
Okay. But Danny, to your point again, every situation's different, but I would think, you know, typically you're right. You know, if there was a claim, regardless of how long it would take, sometimes those things take time. We're years down the road, you know, so I would assume whatever was going to get paid or what was going to happen or was not going to happen is done at this point, would be my assumption about an insurance claim with that building.
The structural damage part worries me. When you mention structural damage, and I don't know really what else to say. I know our building code is kicking in on that too. I don't know really where everything falls at on all this building. You know, the safety of it is the problem. And I'm well to be able to save that building because it does have the same look, the heritage look.
Yeah.
But the structural damage sure does concern me.
Yeah. So, if there aren't any other questions or comments, I appreciate your time. I don't think we have any additional questions at this time anyway.
Well, so are we gonna sit tight till we find out about a grant? Is that kind of what
No,
you're
but
saying?
no, I think though, reviewing the ordinance as well as information we've received tonight, we now know who the owner is. I think we should probably take that under advisement about if and how the ordinance would apply to this situation.
Okay.
Do you know what the insurance situation is in the property, with the current owner?
What,
Oh, he did not carry insurance
He
after
stopped,
the
yeah.
accident.
After the
Or
accident.
incident, yes.
he
So there was no
stopped the
insurance on it until we
We took
actually
over.
put our own insurance on it.
Have you had any communication with First Savings Bank, the lender of record on the property?
No.
Okay. My reason for asking that question is ordinarily is a requirement, ongoing requirement under any commercial loan is going to be keeping the collateral insured.
Right, right. And we did have to provide proof of our insurance.
Yeah, I'll say, I don't know, I haven't looked at the terms of that loan, but, I would imagine that, again, and this is speaking hypothetically, but in ordinary circumstances, if you cease to keep your property insured, that's ordinarily going to be an event of default under a loan, under a mortgage. I would be interested to know what First Savings Bank or whoever the current holder of that mortgage and note would have to say about the matter, or what communication they've had with the contract seller.
I believe it is still with First Savings,
Okay.
according to our contract.
Because I think that's that's certainly an issue there. And ordinarily, again, as well, this is just speaking, for partially for you all, and also for the commission to consider as well, is that any action that if the city were to take some action under the unsafe building law with respect to the property, we would be needing to serve notice not only to the contract purchasers, but also the contract sellers and any folks with a record interest in the property. That would include First Savings Bank. So, we would, I think there would be further conversation there.
Thank you guys very
Yeah.
much.
All right,
I
thanks.
really appreciate your
Yeah.
time this evening. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So we're back. Any other old business? All right. Well, if there's no other old business to discuss, that brings us to the end of our agenda. I would
I'll make a motion for adjournment.
entertain the motion to adjourn the meeting since we have.
And I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second. Well,
Next meeting is, I'm sorry, next meeting is,
Gina, when's our next meeting? All right, April 24th, 2023 is our next meeting. Had a motion made and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.